from Studycat. We have
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Jake. How are you?
Very good, thank you, Maria.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, too. Thanks for having me. It's 9 o'clock here in Shanghai, but great to see everybody.
Okay. And we have Cawley from Cambridge Assessment. Welcome, Ian. Welcome back.
Hello, Maria, and hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here, too. And it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm joining from each part of the world. So, yeah, great. And we have Hind Elyas with you. How are you, Hind, today?
Oh, hello, hi. Thank you very much for having me, and I really look forward to the event. 4 o'clock in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, and we are connected from Saudi Arabia. So am I. I'm here in Riyadh, Hind.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome to all our attendees. And today we are going to reflect on transformation and adaptation in teaching and learning post-pandemic. Unfortunately, Dr. Osama is not joining us today. He has COVID and he is very ill. So we just pray for him to get well soon. Great. So let's start with our questions. So Ian, I would like to start with you first. So the first question is, both adaptation and transformation refer to process of change, but the motivation and approach differs. What would you like to add to this, Ian?
Yeah, thanks. A really interesting question, Maria. So I'd like to give my perspective from Cambridge Assessment. So for those of you who aren't aware of what I do, I work at Cambridge Assessment in the UK, and we produce English language assessments and learning materials. So this is a really interesting question because we've gone through both these processes here in Cambridge. At the beginning of the pandemic, which is almost a year and a half ago now, certainly there was a period of adaptation where we were looking at our learning materials and the materials that we had for our exams and for preparing students for their exams, and we were looking at how we could digitize those materials, and we went through a process of doing that over the course of that year. As a result of that, and the effects that we saw and the way that those materials were used, it's really helped us to start looking at how we are going to transform the way that we work. Because traditionally, we are a paper-based exam board. Most of our exams have been delivered via paper. All of our learning materials, or the vast majority of them, have been delivered in book form. And so we've really been looking at how we can change that approach. But there are lots of factors that we've needed to consider. One of the reasons why our exams have been delivered in a paper-based format is that it allows us to inspect our examination centres to make sure that the exams are delivered in the proper fashion. It means that we can ensure that we have proper invigilation and proctoring procedures in place so that the exams are taken securely. And so we've had to look at how we can change that. Delivering exams online means that we need to work with online proctoring providers. There are very different approaches to doing that. We've had to find the ones that work for us. Also, there have been challenges in terms of the way that we move from paper-based to an online, in terms of the way that our exams look on screen, the way that they're marked, etc. And it's an ongoing process. So I would say that the adaptation has certainly led to us transforming our exams and our learning materials. We haven't finished yet. We're in the middle of that process, but certainly the situation that we find ourselves in has increased the need to do this.
Great, thank you, Ian. Hind, would you like to add from a teacher's perspective? Hind, we can't hear you. Could you kindly unmute yourself? Thank you. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great.
Yes, so I'm going to start with just a brief idea of what adaptation is, which is adjusting or changing. And it's exactly what we're doing right now. It's changing our teaching styles, our learning styles due to the pandemic. And that is by moving to online classes. Finding different ways to engage the students, to deliver our lessons. So adaptation happens as a result of something else, and this leads to change. And in our situation, this change is moving from face-to-face classes to online classes. On the other hand, transformation is when we change from something to something completely different. And that is what's going to happen after the pandemic. If we talk about it in terms of education and teaching in the current situation, we'll think about we're going to transform from the traditional 21st century learning to 21st century learning. And we need a paradigm shift to help students meet their needs and learn at their own pace. And a good example is, as I mentioned, moving from 20th century learning to 21st century learning. And that is the main thing, is using technology in the classroom. And that's what we're doing right now. So transformation can't happen without technology. And that's the way forward. It's moving from teacher-centered classes with fragmented curriculum, no student engagement, focusing on memorization, to student-centered classes where students are in the driver's seat. They're all learning, contributing, collaborative learning, and building upon what students know rather than getting them to memorize materials and just learn through memorization.
Yeah, true. And of course, where we come to EdTech tools. So I think Jake would add on to this. Jake?
Yeah, I come at it from a little bit of a different angle, because at Studycat we make language learning apps for kids all around the world. And we've always been in the... Can you just ask people to turn their microphones off?
Yeah. Could kindly everybody mute your microphones? Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, Cawley. So we came at this from a quite different angle, because we were already online. We were already doing app-based learning. We were already we thought we were trying to be transformational, but we found that before the pandemic, we didn't have as many people having to adapt. So we went through this process where we were trying to transform people and we weren't having the most luck. And then COVID forced adaptation. That adaptation at the beginning, I don't think was transformational for anybody. I think it was just coping. The motivation was coping. But what we're seeing now is, because I'm based out in China, this started here. Sorry to the rest of the world for it starting here, by the way. And but we work with Vietnam and Malaysia, Cambodia, Korea, Japan. All these countries are now really starting to look at the transformation. They're not thinking now, how are we going to keep coping? They're thinking, what is the next thing that we're going to launch just in September already? So most of these schools we work with are already much more flipped classrooms, much more blended approaches. They're really transforming to saying, the biggest transformation I've seen is the ability to let children, because like we work with kids, to let young learners learn at home on their own. So when they come to class, they can change what they're doing in class. So I think that's the biggest transformation we've seen. So yeah, we saw it from people trying to adapt and now starting to transform. But we felt like we were already transformed before that.
Yeah, great, interesting answer. So let's move on to our next one. The emergence of COVID-19 led to emergency adaptation. That's what I think, Jake, that's what you were just saying in teaching learning. But wasn't it overdue? Like, we were already in 21st century, and I think this panic that happened, and then when teachers were, it was a mayhem, what should we do? Or students are not motivated. I guess the lack of the transformation of educational teaching and learning led to this this worry or this panic, so to speak. So, Jake, I think I will like you to add, and then we'll move on to the rest of our guests.
Yeah, I mean, for us, that's how we felt, right? It was, for a long time, we thought this is how it should be. Every other industry is changing by adapting new technology or adapting new communication channels, adapting new ways of doing things, and trying to sort of bring, we were trying to bring education and sort of more of a democratization of the education. We were trying to let learning happen outside of classrooms, etc. And I think that in the past we talked about change. We talked about things like 21st century skills and so, and they're all great, but I don't know if that led to much change in the classroom. My experience as a Trinity Diploma Assessor, seeing teachers all over Asia, the classes hadn't changed that much, but now we're seeing a lot of that change. And so I would say, yes, it was overdue. And I think that by putting a mirror up to ourselves, we now realize it is time, we have started changing.
Yeah, I think it was nick of the time then. It's too late anyways. Ian, would you like to add to this, please?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating what Jake said, and I would absolutely agree. I think, my organisation, we knew that these changes needed to come, and we'd been thinking about them for a long time, and we'd been looking at what we were going to do, but there perhaps wasn't a sense of urgency, and obviously, as I said before, the fact that we live in this new world because of COVID has certainly meant that we've needed to look at ways of moving everything online and looking at how we can integrate our learning and assessments and doing that in an online way. So I would agree. I think definitely it's something that's been overdue. But I think I would probably have found myself, Jake mentioned some of the teachers that he that he assesses were perhaps not, using these new tools, and I would probably find myself in that that pool as well. But yeah, I agree. It's long overdue. I think in some ways the students are ahead of the teachers in terms of the use of technology, and it's a very exciting new world that we find ourselves in.
Right. Definitely, yes. Hind?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Ian and Jake. And before the pandemic, technology was important, but not as important as it is today. However, the spread of the pandemic helped speed the process. This is the 21st century. We were supposed to up our game before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we can say it's a wake-up call. There's a widely held notion that everyone will or should be using technology, and there were many talks about teachers changing their teaching styles and implementing technology in the classroom, and everyone was very excited about it. But when it actually happened, educators were not excited because we weren't prepared. It was something new. We didn't have enough time. Most people switched to online teaching in a matter of days, so it was very overwhelming. And just doing that, if you take time and you get to do it gradually, that's fine. But just doing it very quickly, it was a bit difficult. And the pandemic showed that teachers are struggling with technology. And they felt like they could have seized the opportunity in previous years where there were so many webinars about how to teach online, and even for me, I was just attending every single webinar online and just trying to take notes and just trying to catch up in such a short time.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying all teachers are struggling with technology, but I think those who are interested in technology or in webinars related to online teaching, or those who had a background, didn't struggle as much as everyone else. And I think for many, they regretted not making use of those webinars, and it's not only the webinars, but it's the time factor. That was a major issue. Because we had to do it really quickly and, little experience. So I think we took it for granted, and it was kind of forced upon us. Mm-hmm. So we can say digitalization was already in the process of transforming education before COVID, but now it's going at a faster rate. Thank you.
Definitely, yes. Thank you, Hind. Interesting input. So, Hind, I would like to add to this. The struggle to keep students engaged and motivated was the biggest challenge teachers faced. The adaptation of various pedagogical strategies led to more frustration than success. What would you like to say about it? Because I heard more frustrations about these rather than success stories. So
absolutely. It's true that we all try to keep students engaged using different apps, Padlet, Class Dojo. There's so many different apps that we can use to get the students engaged. But the frustration comes because teachers now have a completely different skill set compared to face-to-face teaching. And we're constantly learning new techniques and trying to engage them and motivate them. So we're learning and trying to teach them at the same time. There are other issues such as the home environment that has distractions for teachers and students. And that is a major challenge, especially, for example, in my classes when I have two sisters in the same room where you can hear the other teacher presenting at the same time. So that is a major challenge.
Yes.
Another issue is when we share our screens, the students can't see our faces.
Yeah.
They're very small. And I just want to quote a friend and a mentor, Andy Curtis, the 2015 TESOL International president. He mentioned that slides may be the cause that there is no contact. He mentioned in the presentation, speaker slides may be 96% of the screen and 4% with the speaker. And that's exactly what it's like in our classes. We have our PowerPoints and the students don't see us. Another issue is that so most of the time we have, frustration about the technology, and it shows in our voices. So the students can't really see us, and they hear that frustration, and they don't know if we're frustrated because of them. The body language is not there, so it can actually have an impact on how they feel and on their performance. Eventually, it will affect their performance. Another issue, I'll just say this very quickly, is that when you call out students' names and they don't respond, I feel when it's online, they feel that they don't have to respond. It's not like when they're in a face-to-face classroom. Yeah. You go to breakout rooms, you find that they're sitting there doing nothing. So there are lots of challenges, but we're always looking for ways to overcome these challenges and adapt to the situation. Thank you.
I think I would just like to add here before we move on to the rest of the guests. I think this frustration is also in the face-to-face teaching, isn't it? When we're trying to use different EFL tools or different even hands-on activities, not even EdTech tools. It's always a challenge. It depends on the students you're teaching. It depends the time of the day you're teaching. And I think it is all different elements that evolves around this question, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think when it's online, when it's face to face, you can smile or do something to make them feel it's okay and it's not you. But when it's online, you can't really, and your voice, they can't tell if you're happy or sad or angry. So it's a bit challenging online.
True. Jake, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go on for long about it, but Hind, I think you really summed up everything I was going to say anyway, so it was really great listening to you. But I wanted to add two things. The point about the PPTs, this has been a problem with online teaching a long time before the pandemic. It's an obsession that we have, that we think that teaching online means using a PPT. And I do it too when I'm doing webinars. And it's because the online platforms, the mode that we're using says present a screen, because they were developed for meetings, right? Yeah. They weren't developed for classrooms. What we're seeing now is seeing people like Classy, LearnCube. There's a bunch of really great online classrooms now that are coming out where they don't encourage this presentation, where it's more of a whiteboard, kids can interact on the whiteboard, breakout rooms, you can have people talking to each other, and you're right, like focusing on this sort of linear base, left to right, that's not how we would teach in a class, right? We'd be always interacting with what's happening with the students in the actual class. But I will say one thing, and I'll say a positive thing to finish this off. I love the frustration. I love seeing teachers frustrated, because frustration is sort of a symbol of learning, right? I mean, I have a daughter. When she is frustrated, it means she's learning. And if she's learning, I'm happy, because that's the job that's what we do, right? So when I see that frustration, I think, great, that means you're learning something. And the last thing I'll say here is, I do think that a lot of the same pedagogical skills and strategies should be adapted. We should be still doing group work, and we can still be doing pair things, and we can still be having open discussion. I think if we just sort of didn't rely so much on a PPT or a textbook on the screen, and we sort of start to use other tools, we might be able to cope with those frustrations more. That's all from me, though.
Yeah, great. Ian, would you like to add to this?
Well, I think it's fascinating to hear Hind's experiences actually of what it's like trying to manage classrooms online, and also what Jake said about the fact that it's been a steep learning curve for everybody as well. Because I think, you know, if you'd asked me a year and a half ago about managing classrooms online and setting up group work and putting people in different, you know, in different rooms, you know, using online web tools, it was something that I wouldn't know how to do at all. So I think it's incredible, and you're absolutely right. You know, teachers have learned a great deal. I think the other thing that I just wanted to say was, I think probably one of the problems with online classrooms is that I find that myself, it's very easy for me to become disengaged and to go on and do something else. You know, I'll be listening to a webinar, but I'll go on and I'll fiddle around with my phone, and then I'll think, oh, why don't I have a look at this website? And I think that, I think that must be one of the big frustrations for teachers. But yeah, I think it's quite incredible the way that, we've been able to adapt and, as you say, learn so much in such a short period of time.
True, but I think it was a triumph for students. They were able to snooze for another 5-10 minutes while they were still online. So that's one of the frustrations we were facing. Yes, I'm here, but snoozing away.
Well, you lose that eye contact, don't you? You know, you can see when you're in front of a classroom of students, you can see who's engaged, who isn't. You know, who's struggling, who's not, and it is more difficult to do that when you're faced with just a bank of videos of different people. And as you say, Maria, it's easier to hide, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Happy to go back next week.
Yeah.
Okay, this is for the attendees. We will, break for a second and reflect in one word. If you could kindly use the link presented on the top to share your thoughts. In one word, share your thoughts about our discussion so far. So I can see some of them were popping up in the chat box, but we would like to see just one word, what you have. So kindly, if you go on this link and share your thoughts, please. What you have heard from our panelists so far, what would you describe it into? We'll give it a 30 seconds here.
The chat for everybody, so they can actually, if you have the link, some people asking in the chat.
No one, yeah. Insightful, okay, yeah, they're saying it in the chat box. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that can't.
Okay. If you use this link on the top, pollev.com/Maria Zaheer 806, you're able to respond to this poll. Transformative, good. Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to share their thoughts? Rapid learning, interesting. Good discussion we have in the chat box.
Yeah.
Resourceful, engaging, right? Challenging, all right. So we're seeing more words in the chat box. The link is on the top here, right on the top of the poll, pollev.com/Maria Zaheer 806. If you could just put this in, it's also in the chat. Thank you, Jake.
It's okay.
Jake has just shared it in the chat box. Click on this, please, and you can respond to this. Another 10 seconds. Here we go. Inside.
Sorry, Hind. Is it pronounced Hind or Hind?
It's Hind.
Hind, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't,
My apologies, Hind. Sorry.
I think I said Hind as well.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so we have more questions, more answers coming in now, finally. Adaptation, transformation. Insightful is the largest word, so great. Thank you for your input. 5 seconds, and then we'll close this poll. Change, exciting, timely, Frustration is there. Informative, okay. Keywords picking up. Comprehensive, thank you. Great, thank you. Insightful and resourceful is becoming larger now. That means that's the most preferred word. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input. So we will move on to our next set of questions to our panelists now. So we will start with Jake now. The new normal transformation of deliverance of lesson will prevail, or do you see it going back to conventional norms? What do you think?
I think yes and no. I think in some schools, yes, we will transform and go forward. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be up to teachers and students and parents. And I know that sounds a bit sad that, you know, I think a lot of teachers want to change and they're excited and kids are excited to do new things. And I think in the end, it's gone down to loving
Sorry, Jake, your voice is breaking up. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me? No?
No, your voice is breaking. Okay, we'll let you come back for a while. We'll continue with Hind.
Okay, thank you. So in my opinion, I don't see it going back to the way it was, because the pandemic has caused abrupt and profound changes in our education. And despite the challenges we've had online teaching, and for some, it's a blessing in disguise. It was an opportunity to work from home, save money and time. And this is something that stakeholders would be happy with. Education has been immensely affected by the ongoing digitalization due to COVID, and we've all found ourselves working in completely new circumstances. It has actually pushed all educators into the digital era, despite challenges, which are connectivity issues, lack of knowledge, lack of experience. And I think another reason, that's why I think it's unlikely to go back. And I think another reason is that we're still not sure about the situation with COVID. I think we don't want to go back to online classes and then have to shift all over again. So I think it will be kind of a blended form where some classes will be online, some will be face-to-face, and we'll just, take it one step at a time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, Jake, welcome back.
It's funny, every time Hind says something, it's exactly what I want to say. So, yeah, I think it will be that. Yeah, I think that it will be exactly what you said. I think that what will transform is what we're actually doing in classes. Things like, making sure there's more learner autonomy skills, more independent learning skills, making sure that there's more integration of what we're learning at home. So if we do close quickly, we can just adapt quickly. But what I was trying to say was, I think that the final changes, teachers want to change and students want to change, parents especially want to change because they've seen change. But really the change is going to have to come, it's coming bottom up. But I mean, I can't wait to see people like Cambridge, hi Ian, and I'm saying it, and National Geographic and Pearson, and I used to work for one of the big publishers. When we see these big publishers and government changing, then I think we'll see real transformation. For now, I think it'll be more grassroots about, us smaller schools adapting ideas and things. Yeah. So I'm hoping that we're hearing Ian say very positive things today. So hopefully that will drive that as well.
Definitely. Ian?
Over to Ian.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting question, and I was fascinated to hear both Hind and Jake's responses, because it's something that my colleagues and I have been talking about a lot. And it's interesting what Jake said about whose decision will it be at the end of the day. From my own experiences with my own children, who were at home for a long, long time before they were allowed to go back to school. They were desperate to get back into the classroom, and they were desperate for things to get back to normal. And I get the impression that that's probably the way that a lot of higher education students feel as well, which is another area of my work. But to Jake's point, yeah, certainly there's going to be a big shift in the kind of integrating learning and assessment products that we at Cambridge, and I'm sure other providers will be putting together, and watch this space, because I think in the next couple of years there's going to be, first of all, lots of integrated language courses with built-in placement, progress, and then end of course tests. There'll be a much closer link between the work that we do in the classroom and the materials that will be available for students to do at home. And as Jake said, matching those together a lot more. And I think that's one of the great things that we have with all the technological developments that we've made, that we can create more stuff for students to do outside of the classroom and integrate that more with what they do with their teachers in class as well. But yeah, let's see. I mean, I'd be really, it'd be great to hear from the other attendees today as well, I think, and see what their impressions are, because I don't think we all, any of us know 100% what's going to happen.
Yeah. But I would just like to have the optimistic view with Jake, saying that the frustration is meaning that you're learning, but frustration can also lead you back to your own normal conventional norms, where you think, oh, there was too much an effort going through online process and everything. I'm going back to my textbooks and my usual bad things. So I hope not. I'm really hoping that teachers will have that motivation continuing and continue to have an optimistic view and continue learning. And that's what we need, I think. So Ian, I think we will start. I think it's time to ask you these questions first, and then we will move on to the rest of our guests. So assessments were seen as the biggest bone of contention throughout the period of distance teaching and learning, because teachers thought it was hard to assess them. There wasn't any rigor in the assessments they were doing. So what were you shared with us some of your thoughts about the struggling moments, and you said you've been resolving them from Cambridge assessment side.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I totally get this question, and it's we've seen it a lot. I mean, as you know, Maria, from sort of previous presentations that we've done together, that I'm particularly involved in the development of online assessments at Cambridge,
yes.
Which we've been doing for a number of years now, and we've certainly seen an increase in their popularity during the pandemic, because it allows students to take assessments at home. However, as I mentioned right at the beginning of today's discussion, one of the issues that we've got is ensuring that we have that rigor in terms of security, ensuring that students are still taking the exams under exam conditions, and also that the environment that they take the exams under is fair for them as well, because it varies a lot. We're often asked about the medium in which the exams are delivered. Can students take our tests on mobile devices, for example, or do they need to be taken on laptops? And I personally feel that if you're taking an assessment on a mobile phone or on a tablet, the experience is going to be quite different from if you've got a laptop with a headset, or you're doing it in a computer lab. So those things can really affect students. And also the way that the exams are marked as well. We found that there's an increasing demand for results to be given back as quickly as possible. Now, in the past, and it's still the case to a certain degree, with some of our traditional exams like Cambridge First or Advanced, or even IELTS to a degree, all the exam papers would come back centrally. They would be marked. We'd have examiners who would sit around and go through that hundreds of scripts a day. And now we've seen an increase in the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we as an organisation have invested quite heavily in that. So we do see that as the future. However, there is also, a feeling amongst many teachers and institutions that the use of AI is perhaps not the way to go, and so we're trying to find a balance and keep examiners in the loop while using AI intelligence as well. So these are all issues that are coming out at the moment, but I think certainly online assessments are the way forward. We're certainly going to be developing more of them in Cambridge and looking at ways that we can integrate remote proctoring solutions to make sure that they are taken securely.
That sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Jake, would you like to add before Hind steals your thoughts?
No, it's fine. This is the big topic. And I'm fascinated to hear a late day what Ian was saying about it and how places like Cambridge will change. I've said, Ian said, AI, machine learning, he said some people are
Jake, you're breaking up again. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go. It must be, just bad internet.
Maybe
Sorry,
guys.
Jake.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the China net via VPN. Yeah, you all understand. But Ian, I was fascinated that how can I say this? There's obviously going to be a massive advantage of what AI and machine learning can do. But I'm really fascinated to hear more from Ian about what would be the pushback against that. And I understand that's one thing that I'm really fascinated to see coming in. The second thing is this idea that because we work in tech and app-based learning, that almost every time you touch the app, it is an opportunity for assessment. So I'm wondering if there'll be more of a shift away from one-time assessment, come and do your IELTS test or come and do your end of school test, and integrating sort of that ongoing assessment. Because with a lot of good apps, I won't say all apps, but there are decent apps out there now and decent online tools where every interaction is an assessment. So it's informative, it's very formative, and it's very integrated into the learning. So that's where I'm fascinated by the AI side of the assessment. But I don't really have anything else to say because this is sort of Ian's field, and I'd love to hear more from him at another day as well.
Yeah, but I mean,
sorry, Ian, go ahead.
No, just to Jake's point, I think that's exactly what is going to happen. We've worked a lot with adaptive testing technology. The idea that questions get harder or easier depending on the answers that we give, and away from a traditional exam at a certain level. Now there are exams out there which cover students, across the whole CFR, and it's the algorithm within the test that determines what questions the students get. And I think we're going to be using that more in terms of the learning that we have as well. So both the learning and assessment will be integrated together, and will adapt depending on the on the level of the student. So yeah, definitely, Jake, that's where it's going, and that's what we're working on. One of the things that I'd like to mention, I don't know whether you said this or not because you were breaking up at the time, but we've seen it's interesting that there is still quite a lot of mistrust around the use of AI, and we certainly find that often we get students who want to, we call it an inquiry on results, where they want to they feel that they should have done better in the exam, and they want us to review it to see was the marking, was the examiner clear. And we find that with the use of AI we get so many more requests because people don't trust it. However, there is a flip side to that, because I spent many years as an examiner trainer, and my job was to try to standardize IELTS examiners across the world, and it's an incredibly difficult thing to do, because you can standardize yourself to mark in the same way, but you can't do that with people who are dealing with students from different countries, with different accents, who make different kinds of grammatical mistakes that the examiners might get used to. So the use of AI in a way allows us to standardize everything much more. And AI will always mark in the same way. AI doesn't have a bad day. doesn't get tired. And so what we're trying to do is this idea, as I mentioned, this examiner in the loop, that we mix them both together. We use the AI technology, but we also have a human there as well, just to kind of back up what the AI tech is saying. But it's a fascinating. We could talk about it for a long time. I'll keep walking now. Sorry.
Sorry.
To this.
Well, I just want to start by saying that I'm very, very interested in assessment. We focus on assessment, and I'm a founding member of the English Language Testing Society, and I was an advisor with National Geographic for a year. So we focused on, we looked at assessment from different viewpoints, and so I've been really interested in assessment online. So, and I feel many educators are struggling with exams, and they just don't know what to do with them. There are challenges with assessment from a teacher's perspective, such as academic integrity, plagiarism, cheating. We can't see the students, and that's a major issue. Yeah, their cameras are on, but you still don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And this, of course, affects the validity of these exams. Students might not be willing to put their cameras on, and you have to struggle to get them to put their cameras on. But you also need to take into consideration the cultural reasons, and be careful with that. Another issue is that it's not easy to monitor who is actually taking the tests and answering the questions. One of the ways to tackle this issue, I think, is by using portfolios or projects or peer evaluation. Plagiarism, this often happens because there's not much interaction with the teacher, and this is online and in online environment. It's the interaction is actually limited. Another issue is that students don't submit their assessments. It could be for many reasons. They need to be committed to submitting their assessments, but they can also take advantage of the fact that there are connection issues. You don't know. You have to give them the benefit of doubt, so it can be challenging. If they face another issue for teachers, if students face technical issues during the exams, you don't know what to tell them because you can't see their screen. You can't. It's not as easy, so it might be difficult to fix it remotely. And we have failure of software, hardware, connectivity issues, and I think the only solution, and unstable internet. And it's not only the students; the teachers can experience that as well. So I think the solution would be a series of quizzes to demonstrate their understanding, and randomizing questions. Open book exams, take-home assessments. These could be the method, the online presentations, e-portfolios, projects. I think this is the way we could assess students during the pandemic. But it will definitely affect their performance. We'll need to do a lot of work when we go back to face-to-face classes.
Yeah, looking forward to it next week. Yeah, but tilting towards more formative assessments than rather project-based learning, and then giving them even the anxiety of going to a summative assessment or an exam. But I think time-sensitive projects, time-sensitive online assessments are also valuable here to be mentioned, that the students know that they have to finish this in 30 minutes. I know the anxiety is there as well, but I think from my perspective, it increases rigor. The reliability is also there because they then don't have time to look around. They're 30 minutes and finish. Well, that's my perspective. Okay, great. Thank you. Here we are on our almost session. So the 21st century cohorts thrive on new innovation and engaging ideas, but tend to get bored very easily. How can teachers' transformative approaches eradicate this phenomenon? Would you like to add on this?
Yes, thank you. So teaching online is a new experience for everyone. And I think the best way to start is to train teachers and make sure that they are well trained. And we can use different methods to make lessons more engaging and interesting. But some traditional methods are also very effective. Like we can use online apps like Padlet, Nearpod, Bitmoji, Quizlet. But I've also noticed it's doing small things like putting the students in the driver's seat and getting them to, they'll build good relationships with their peers. it's kind of like a flipped classroom where students lead the sessions. And this is what I do in my classes, where students gets to actually lead the class or lead a page, do a whole page, and they are the teachers at that point. Of course, with guidance and supervision, and I just jump in whenever I feel like they're stuck. Sorry. Self-assessments also provide an opportunity to give them a sense of ownership. And it's really interesting. I just want to mention something that when I'm doing a class and I ask a question, students, you have a few hands going up, but when it's one of the students, then they support each other. And then you see like all the hands, you see that beeping going up, ding, 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 they're all putting their hands up because they're supporting each other. So that is also, it builds, a community. And it's also important to remember that there are different formats to use, like breakout rooms, like just making use of what we have. Breakout rooms, Google Docs, embedded videos, audios, chat rooms, and collaborative learning. When you have different group members have different roles, I also, sometimes the students are shy and they're a bit reluctant online, so just getting them to respond by using an emoji or thumbs up, this really helps. And I'll just mention this very quickly. One of the activities that is really helpful is the Fishbowl activity. So just trying to adapt things that we already have to online classes. So the Fishbowl actually is like two circles where you have the middle group engage in a discussion or talk about something, and the ones outside observe, and then they give their feedback. So you can just give them a Google Doc where you have the list of the ones who are the Fishbowl and the ones who are observing, and then they get to, when the ones inside the Fishbowl finish their activity, and there's actually no Fishbowl here because it's online. But when they finish their activity, then they switch. There's group A and group B, and then they switch, and then the other ones do the same thing. So this is really, it gets them to discuss and talk, and it really helps. So this is one of the activities that I really enjoy in the class.
Interesting. Thank you, Hind. Jake, from a young learner's perspective, what would you like to
add? Everything that Hind just said, it's awesome. I really enjoy listening to. No, Hind, I'm really serious. No. I really enjoy listening to you talk about things that what you're saying is, you're using the same activities you used in class and the same sensibilities, like coming into an online class with kids, even at 6 years old, 5 years old, doing things like not speaking, letting them ask questions, letting them take control, let them ask other kids, all the things you would usually do. And you mentioned the word bored here. Look, kids will get bored of any game, any technology they'll be bored of. But if you keep to those fundamentals like active engagement, make sure they're actively engaged in the class, that you're doing fun things that is interesting to them, so they're focusing their attention. Number 3 is always make sure they're being challenged, because the one way to keep a kid not bored is challenge them, and so push them. If they just have to watch you on a PPT going from left to right, well, that's not very challenging. But as Hind have, I've got to come to class and ask my friends 5 questions. That's a challenge, right? Now I'm going to focus. I can't be bored. And then also the big part is giving feedback to the learning throughout the online classes, which I think people think, oh, well, it's online. But I mean, if the parents allow you and you can watch it later and you can give feedback to the parents. And anyway, I just think there is so much of what you just said. It's about how you teach and the pedagogical approaches you have. It's not about the technology that keeps them bored or not bored. So I second what you say, Hind.
Thank you so much.
Ian, would you kindly add something to us, please?
I mean, there isn't much for me to add, just to say that I've learned so much from Hind and Jake. I think it's brilliant, and Hind's, all these activities sound absolutely wonderful. But I think it's brilliant. You've summed it up, Jake. It's not about throwing everything that we've done out of the window and starting again. It's about it's just about adapting what we've already been doing. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay, so we are approaching to our final question of the day. Ian, while we are there with you, we'll start the question with you. EdTech has played a vital role in the transformation of education arena. To what extent do you think teachers will continue to use these learning tools in face-to-face teaching?
Well, I mean, as we've said throughout today, I just hope that that teachers will use what they've learned so far and all the new skills and all the new technology that's out there and make more use of it as they go back to face-to-face teaching, and hopefully it will just help people to build on the great work that they've already been doing and just give them more tools to create great classes.
True, really, very optimistic about it. Yes, Jake?
Oh, thank you. Well, it's funny, for someone who comes from an ed tech company and is focused on selling software and technology and apps to schools, I actually hope that we don't take on much. I mean, I really hope that teachers do really go back to focusing on things in class time, like collaboration and problem solving and all these great skills. But what I do hope is that we integrate these learning tools, these e-learning tools and apps into homework and flipped classroom and pre-learning. So we're not spending our whole class doing, just focusing, doing lots of roads and stuff. That if we can integrate the learning into the tools outside the classroom, then hopefully in class we'll have more opportunities for those real moments of learning opportunities. And that if we do adopt the tools in class, that they're not just about a kid staring into an app. My daughter's school do that. You sort of, all the kids now stare at an app and just go through it. Now that's great, but you could have done that at home, or you could have done that at another time. If you're going to have kids together, it's great to have some independent time, but I hope that we get back to some just pure peer learning, problem solving, task-based stuff. It's just real learning, right? So I'm in two worlds about this. That's my final point on it.
Hind, would you like to add something here?
Yes, thank you. I think after COVID, digital learning will be the new normal. I think we'll have a kind of form of blended learning, like both face-to-face, but more technology in the classroom. And that we will keep using more online tools and continue, I think teachers will continue their digitally enhanced approach, because institutions have so many online courses, so many materials, they've received a lot of training, they have a lot of material, and they realize that these learning outcomes are actually improved with online instruction. And actually many students, I feel like from my experience, I feel that they've actually thrived during virtual learning. And I think that a shift to digital learning will be permanent. And I don't, we will, as I mentioned, we will have a blended form. Where remote and digital platforms will support in-class face-to-face teaching. And this form will increase, and with that, online education will be a priority. People will realize the importance of digital learning and online teaching. And not only will it help teachers, it will also help stakeholders. They'll realize that there's going to be an increase in revenue, and it will be a major strategic priority. The positive experience that we're gained during the pandemic will make teachers realize that there is a good long-term outcome, or good long-term outcomes using technology. I also think that teachers realize the importance of implementing technology in the classroom. And I think institutions will probably re-examine the situation to determine how they could implement technology, even if it's face-to-face classrooms, probably using whiteboards, interactive whiteboards, using iPads, and finding ways to move forward using technology in the classroom.
True that, but you can also use that for different stages of a lesson, like just a reviewing of a lesson, or you can pull up, I'm an absolute fan of Quizlet, I'm an absolute fan of Kahoot. Quizlet is amazing motivation in the class. And I used to just pull it out for a revision of a vocabulary activity, or Kahoot, the grammar activity. So it doesn't mean that you're using this for the whole stretch of the class. You can just link one element or one stage of your lesson to
Yes,
one of those edtech tools. And it really created, because they had their mobile phones in their hand, they were able to use it. Even this poll that we experienced early, so they could see the answers as a word cloud on the front. So any little thing, bringing them back to something they're used to for 1.5 years of this online teaching, they can still relate back to. I'm sure they will continue liking these things coming back in the classroom face to face.
Can I have one last point here, Maria, that
Sure.
I really hope, what I hope we do see? A lot of these tools that we're using, what they're doing is they're giving data on the learning. And it's not just the data that's interesting, it's the insights. So the same way if you have if you do running and you get an app and it tells you how many steps you took and were you faster than yesterday or slower than yesterday, I think that those are the tools that I hope that we keep seeing, where we get insights into learning that we can't get just from face-to-face teaching. That there's no way I can see 30 kids work out where they are going, how much do they know, how much do they not know. But what these tools can do is give data in real time and say, this is where the kids are struggling, this is where this child needs help, or this learner needs help. This learner probably learns better if you help do this. And I think that's going to be the revolution in teaching, is integrating data and insights to make us teachers be able to take on new things when we're actually teaching. So that's my last point, sorry. I promise that's my last point.
So, there's always been that integrated element, in fact, because I remember teaching skills for life, and it had a very good integrated element to it, where I could link their, self-learning tools in the LMS system, and they were able to revise their lesson or the vocab, and I was able to see their progress. How many answers did they get wrong? It helped me to plan my lesson the next day, when I knew the students are still struggling on this vocabulary word, they are still struggling on this kind of grammar element, and even Kahoot has that, Quizzes has. So there are lots of learning tools have that element that provides you data, and I agree with you that learning process helps the teacher to also revise her lesson accordingly. So students are not bored; they are just taking the control of their own learning, and they're building on the knowledge they already have. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So now it's time for the attendees to ask the questions to our panelists. At this point, you can use the same link provided earlier for your poll, or you can open your mics and ask the questions to our guests directly. You can ask your questions now if you wish to, or you can post them on this link provided, please.
I think we can find the link again.
Do we have any questions at the space? We had very interesting thoughts shared. Thank you, Jake, again. You can use this link to post your question. Thank you, Rabha. How can we integrate students into classroom well? We have a question here. Anyone of you would like to answer?
I can answer that question.
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. So I think after COVID, we can't simply just have schools open and expect everything to be okay. There's been a really long gap, and students need so much support to readjust and catch up on lost learning. We need to work on going over tests and reviewing and helping them to improve their test skills, study skills, because we don't know that what was happening behind the screen when they were taking these online tests. So teachers need to be ready to help students catch up and address their learning needs and incorporate digital technology into teaching. There are probably going to be a lot of after-school classes, extra lessons for students to help them catch up. And not only that, but we also need to think about the well-being of our students. what happened to them during COVID. They need counseling as well. We need to make sure that our counselors are also playing a major role, like for their well-being. And not only students, we need that too. Like a lot of things happened over the past year and a half, and we do need to make sure that we think about the well-being of our students and our own well-being as well. So I think that's everybody has to work really closely together, teachers, counselors, parents, students, to get back to where we were.
Great. So we have some questions coming on the screen as well now. Ian or Jake, any one of you would like to address to this?
I mean, do you think students prefer online teaching or face-to-face? I mean, I think it depends on the age, and it depends, the classic answer, it depends on the student. But I think for the younger kids, I see with my daughter's age, who's 7, she can't wait to be, it's all she thinks about is being back in front of her friends. And there's so much other learning that happens around the social interaction, right? They're programmed to want to be around other kids. But I mean, I've met lots of, sort of the teen kids that we work with that say, they love it online because they don't get distracted, they can focus, and so it's hard to say. I would say if I had to pick, it'd be more that they like face to face. But what do you think, Hind? Do you think it's more face to face, or?
I actually think younger students, or maybe up to grade 6, 7, because they want to meet their friends, they want that interaction, that communication. Especially primary children, they will like that face-to-face interaction. Whereas older students, I teach trainees at Aramco trainees, and I feel that it's different. Some of them like that face-to-face interaction, and some of them are more comfortable working at home. Especially, it also depends on their learning styles. The more confident ones want to be face-to-face, but the ones who are introverts are more confident online. And it's very interesting how when I was teaching online, I have some students who were very, very active online, but when it was face-to-face, they were different people. And it was interesting. So you get to learn about their characters and their learning styles and their personalities. So it changes based on whether it's online or face-to-face. So it's very, very interesting.
And to add, I mean, I think that's a great point, because you have that, the effective feel. If you're at home, you might feel more comfortable at home. Some learners just feel better being in a comfortable environment. I think it's a really fascinating point, Hind. Sorry, Ian, I can't see you on the screen, so we're not referring to you.
No, it's absolutely fine. I think
Ian, would you like to address any of these questions you can see on the screen?
Yeah, I mean, there are some questions about formative assessment versus summative assessment, and I guess the point that I would raise there is it really depends on what the assessment's for and how you want to use it. I mean, certainly, I think formative assessments are fabulous in a classroom environment when you want to see how the students are progressing, etc., through their courses. But as an exam board, we also have lots of summative assessments which are used for student graduation purposes, or if you need to get a visa, or for whatever other purpose. So I think it really depends on what's the purpose of the assessment. What are you trying to get out of the students? But in terms of I think it was great, Hind and Jake's point about different learning styles, and I think that's one thing that we've all learned a lot about, is that we don't all do things in the same way. And I found that even from my own work. I like to have a mix of working from home and going into the office. I certainly want to interact with my colleagues and have that social environment. But equally, when I need to get my head down and get some, a document written, I prefer doing that from home. And I'm sure it's the same for students as well.
True, definitely. That's what the question just came on the screen as well. How can we help our students in the different problems and social behavior and attitudes caused because of pandemic? So because obviously we all like to socialize. It's a tough one, And I think this was one of the biggest struggles that teachers were facing as parents as well. And all working from home, even less social interaction generally, not apart from school and educational arena. We all struggled with this. So
there's been some really interesting things done here in China. I've noticed in Vietnam as well,
yes,
where schools are now allowing time outside of class time to have online sessions. So what they do is they arrange these sessions, and it comes back to the shy student question as well, and is that they arrange time online that isn't learning. And I think what kids associate online classes with now is it's my class time. Whereas in school, we know that half the learning happens at lunchtime, at recess, in the beginning of the school. I'm talking more in primary. So I think that what a lot of schools I'm seeing doing now is they have these little 15 minutes before class, all the kids come in, you don't do anything as a teacher. You just sit back and you say, they can bring in, what's wonderful is some great ideas of things like you're in the house, bring your favorite book. Bring in a book that you know from home and show the rest of the class. Bring in your favorite toy. I'm just looking around me. Bring a picture in that you drew yesterday. So you're breaking down this idea that it's an online class.
yeah,
Because why is it online class? It should be, yes, I have to come to learn online, but yeah, well, you are missing all that interaction. And then you allow kids to chat with the whole class. You come in, be silly, make some jokes, just do what you would usually do in a school.
yeah,
And sorry, one last thing I'll say about this is because kids are under 18, there's this really big, we can't let kids speak to each other online because we know, right? Because of child protection laws and privacy
yes,
laws.
yeah,
But wow, it would be amazing if we could. Because imagine letting kids actually just interact with each other without having to have a teacher there. So that's one way I think we can deal with it.
yes, great. Hind, would you like to add your thoughts of any of the questions? This is the last one for the day.
Okay.
Jake, that was a good response. Hind, hello?
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me?
Hind, would you like to respond to any of the questions you can see on the screen? The last question of the day, and then we'll finish up.
I think the question that I'd like to respond to is how can we motivate students during online classes?
Sure.
And I think it's just by getting the students to, more involved, putting them in the driver's seat, just telling them to read the question and ask their colleagues or peers to answer the question. Just pretend that they are teachers. That's what I tell them. You pretend you are the teacher, ask questions, choose trainees, and they just love that. When you give them responsibility and you tell them, okay, you put them in breakout rooms, they love it. Although I teach adults, but they still young adults, but they still love the idea that they're given, ownership and they're, being valued and they get to choose what they want to do and put their friends in breakout rooms. Just getting them involved and putting them in the driver's seat really helps, and they also connect better with each other. They might be shy to answer a teacher's question, but when their colleague asks the question, they do respond and they feel like it's safe because they're all in the same situation. So that's what I think would really help.
So we have one last question. Now our students have forgotten how to take. Oops, I missed. Where did the question go? Sorry. I don't know. Sorry, it just slipped.
It's okay.
Okay. Need my glasses for this. Regarding assessment, I think formal assessment is what should we have for large extent. I think we have addressed most of it. Yes, thank you very much. That's pretty much it then. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all three of you for joining us today. And it was very insightful and we learned a lot from each other. I'm joining from across the world, from all countries across the globe. And appreciate Jake Whiddon from Studycat, Cawley from Cambridge Assessment, and Hind from Nigeria College. Thank you so much.
Niagara. It's Niagara in Canada.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure being with you, Jake, Ian, and Maria. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful discussion. And
I'll reach out to you both on LinkedIn as well. And Maria, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Same from me too. And great to meet you all. Really enjoyed it.
thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you all.
Ian?
Thank you so much. Really nice to meet you all, and yeah, lovely discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you for coming and joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you at the platform.
Bye-bye.
Jake? Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Maria. I mean, like I said, Maria, you're leading the way in putting these global conferences on. It's excellent, and I'm really impressed how far you've come in the last from when you started a year and a half ago, and now you're putting on. It's excellent.
Thank you so
and
much.
Good to meet you too, Hind.
Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure. Thank you, Maria. It was a wonderful event. I really enjoyed it, and time just went by so quickly.
I know. It's like I could stay on. We could stay on talking to everybody.
I'm going to drag you all again, so get ready for that.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Jake, Ian, Maria. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
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 As well.
Thank you all for all the attendees who were able to join us today. I hope you all learned a lot from us, and we hope to see you in our future events as well. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.